When I got engaged to my boyfriend, he smiled and coaxed me to give him a kiss. Shyly, I obliged, but then I heard his inner thoughts. So gross. Does she really think she's cute? If it wasn't for completing the mission to save my true love, who'd want to act for her? But later on, once he successfully returned to reality and saw his first love, he wasn't happy at all. Acting like a madman, he hurt himself just to return to the mission world to see me again. Ben and I met when we were kids. We were classmates in high school and college. From school uniforms to wedding gowns, everyone envied us. He was like a little sunshine, warm and dazzling. He saved me again and again. Good person, good family, good to me. The perfect boyfriend. The day we got engaged, the party was grand and lively. Friends cheered, kiss. Kiss. Ben leaned in with a smile, dimples deep in his cheeks, and winked at me. Tina, the mood set. Seal it with a kiss, and I'm yours. Dizzy from his handsome looks, I blushed and tiptoed to kiss his lips. Ben chuckled. My Tina is so adorable. My heart pounded like crazy. The crowd burst into even louder cheers. Amidst the chaos, I suddenly heard a mechanical voice. System, affection level 95%. 96%. 97%. Congratulations, host. Target Tina's affection level has reached 99%. Only 1% more, and you'll complete the mission, fulfill your wish, and return to the real world successfully. Then came Ben's inward voice, totally different and laced with cold disdain. So gross. Does she really think she's cute? If it wasn't for completing the mission to save my true love, who'd want to act for her? Surrounded by lively commotion, it felt like someone poured cold water on me. Numb, I stared at him. Sensing my distraction, Ben looked puzzled. Tina, what's up? I snapped back and forced a smile. Nothing, I just need a bathroom break. He playfully tapped my nose, eyes filled with affection. Go ahead. His demeanor was so different from that cold, disdainful voice, such a stark contrast. I bolted to the bathroom alone, recollecting the words I heard, calming myself before heading back out. The party guests had scattered into small groups. I found Ben in the garden's corner. Before approaching, I overheard his inner thoughts again. When can I get rid of Tina? I'm so tired of pretending with her. He stood unnoticed in a corner, scrubbing the spot I kissed off with water, as if I were something filthy, until his skin turned red. I froze. Neither he nor the system noticed me. The system comforted him, only 1% progress left. Soon you won't have to see her anymore. Ben's dark hair dripped with water, long lashes casting shadows over his deep-set eyes, his features unfamiliar and cold. After a while, he twirled the ice blue engagement ring, the top-tier aquamarine reflecting pretty lights, his expression softened. Ben, soon I'll see Linda. She loves blue. These rings should have been hers. Thinking of this, his expression turned cold again. Too bad Tina took it first. Casually, he tossed the ring aside. Doesn't matter, Linda deserves better. Their silent exchange left me rooted in place, slowly piecing it all together. Turns out, my world was just a book. I was the scheming and evil supporting character, the biggest obstacle in the way of the main couple. Ben was a transmigrant. In the real world, he loved a girl named Linda. She got hurt saving him in a car accident and became a vegetable. Ben wanted to save her, so he agreed to the system's requirement, complete the mission to get a wish from the main god. His wish was for his first love to wake up. Failure led to erasure. No wonder he insisted on wearing the gem ring at our engagement. It was because his first love liked blue. Ben liked gifting me blue things, sky blue dresses, navy hairpins, ice blue heels. I thought he liked that color. Turns out, he was just dressing me like his first love. But before our engagement, when I instinctively picked a navy dress he liked, he frowned and asked me to change it. I didn't get it then, but now I do. Perhaps he felt I didn't deserve it, just as he felt I didn't deserve the same set of rings. To him, they should have been Linda's. Dazed, I returned to the party, intentionally bumping into a waiter. Red wine spilled all over me, soiling my white dress. I had an excuse to change outfits. I switched to a sparkling ice blue gown. I went to Ben, pretending nothing happened, playfully complaining about spilling wine and having to change, then asked him, "Do I look nice?" Ben switched back seamlessly, full of love as he patted my head. "Yes, you look good in anything." Yet inwardly he despised me, copycatting Linda again, just a poor imitation. It was him who subtly made me dress like Linda. Now he scorns me for imitating her and stealing her place. It was him who intruded into my life, yet resented me for taking Linda's spot. I realized it wasn't just my imagination, and the smile vanished from my face as I shoved him away. In my ear, a system voice spoke, "Target's affection level, 98, 97, 69, 10, 1%. Host. What's happening? If his affection drops to negative, you'll fail the mission and be erased. 1%. Phew, it finally stabilized at 1%. Host, what's going on? Ben stared at me blankly, not having a clue what just happened. Through everyone's puzzled glances, I firmly said, "Ben, let's break up. The engagement is off. I'll return everything you gave me." The room erupted in gasps. I bolted out of the venue, quit my job that day, and moved to another city. Ben went crazy trying to find me, but I ignored him. For someone who didn't receive much love growing up, you either crave it deeply or reject emotions altogether. I'm the latter. It took a long time to accept someone into my heart, and as soon as it was attacked, I shut it tight again, like a sensitive clam. I got a new job. Here, no one knows me or Ben, and I felt free until Ben eventually tracked me down. He presented a huge bouquet of roses in front of everyone and held my hand so gently, trembling. Looking confused and a bit hurt, he asked, "Tina, what happened? Why did you leave me?" His eyes were red-rimmed, looking like a lost puppy. I remained unmoved, shaking him off. "I just don't like you anymore. Don't show up in front of me." I couldn't tell him I could hear his thoughts. At that moment, his mind was full of confusion and frustration, definitely the evil girlfriend. So unpredictable. What did I do wrong? Silent, I pushed past him, grabbed my stuff, and walked away without another glance. Ben awkwardly tried to catch up, tripped over the flowers, and rushed into the rain, wiping the water off the car window with his hands. His fair face drenched in rain, he looked utterly pitiful. "Tina, if I did something wrong, please tell me. I'll change, I'm willing to change." I stared at him through the rain-smeared glass for a while, then told the cab driver to hurry up and drive off, leaving him behind. Ben didn't give up. He kept sending me flowers every day, rain or shine. On the card, he wrote, "If you don't like our past, I want to start over. Hi, Tina." He managed to establish business with my new company and set up an office next to mine. He moved next to my place, and slowly, everyone at work knew about us. Colleagues said, "He loves you so much, and he's such a catch. Why won't you reconsider?" Old classmates chimed in too, "He genuinely likes you. How can you turn him down?" Even my mom and grandparents called, "Tina, what's up with you and Ben? You dumped him and made him a laughingstock, but he doesn't even mind. He still treats you well. How could you?" Everyone insisted he was head over heels for me. But I knew he actually despised me more and more. I was hindering his mission, puzzling him, leaving him helpless, making him grind his teeth. I was the first part of his life that didn't go according to plan, uncooperative and unstable, yet impossible to ignore. I decided to move again. While packing, an expired grape candy fell out. As I reached down to pick it up, my mom called. She told me, "Your grandpa's sick. Come see him." She hung up, no warmth in her voice. I picked up the old candy and suddenly remembered the first time I met Ben. My mom was the only child in a middle-class family in City A, but got kidnapped to a remote mountain area where she gave birth to me. Those were her darkest days, always beaten, imprisoned, forced. When she accidentally got pregnant with me, she was disgusted and tried hitting her stomach to miscarry. But I was too stubborn. In the end, she had to have me. She hated me, mainly because I carried the blood of her abuser. She believed I would be no good growing up and always treated me coldly. But I relied on her a lot. Kids naturally long for their parents. As soon as I was old enough, I would sneak food and medicine to her, trying to comfort her even though she always told me to go away. Not having been treated well and without other parents to compare to, back then, I didn't even realize she was being cruel. When I turned 10, my mom's attitude suddenly changed. She started smiling at me, braiding my hair, singing nursery rhymes, describing a beautiful world beyond the mountains. She used to tell me about the outside world. How there were tall buildings and in spring, roses along the roads bloomed like waterfalls. Shops of all kinds lined the streets, hidden among flowers and trees. She mentioned the little store packed with tasty candy, especially a kind her relative's kid loved, super sweet. She said, "Tina, when there's a chance, Mama will buy you some candy." I was too young to grasp the complexity in her eyes back then. She called me Tina, a name she picked for me. I was born in the evening. The midwife pushed open the narrow wooden door. She lay inside a stuffy, foul-smelling room. Her first sight was the fresh green paddy fields and wisps of smoke rising in the distance. People thought she was well educated, so they let her name the baby. She casually said, "Tina." Others didn't catch the disdain and randomness in her voice. They assumed it was a sophisticated name. Those days felt like a dream. Too good to be true. But dreams don't last. They shatter with a touch. One night, Mama ran away. I then realized her sudden kindness was to trick me into gathering stuff for her escape. The villagers found out I gave her the key, mapped the route, and prepared supplies. They beat 10-year-old me nearly to death and dragged me along to find her. I didn't blame her. At 10, I couldn't tell right from wrong, but I could see if Mama was okay. She wasn't. I tried hard to buy her time. But she didn't know the mountains like the locals did. My biological father caught her. In front of me, he beat her mercilessly. Mama, too weak to speak, looked at me pleadingly between blows, eyes hopeless and dim. I ran and pushed him. He slipped, tumbled down, hit a big rock, and his blood smeared across it. I froze. Mama was stunned too. Eventually, she nudged him and found he wasn't breathing. As villagers closed in, she ran, leaving me behind. Instinctively, I followed. She couldn't shake me off, so she took me along. With my guidance, we reached the town safely. For the first time, I left the mountains. It was both exciting and intimidating. I clutched my dirty clothes, too shy to lift my head. I saw parents buy treats for their well-dressed daughters. I watched enviously, plucked up the courage to ask Mama for candy, like she'd promised. But she pushed me away, her disdain no longer concealed. "Don't call me Mama. You're not my daughter. You're the daughter of an abuser. So young but a killer, I could never have such a cruel child." I stared at her, lost, apologizing through tears. "Mama, I'm sorry. I don't want candy. I just want you. Please don't leave me." She ignored me, left me at the police station, then vanished. I cried for ages. People inside asked what happened. I didn't know what I did wrong. I told them everything, blaming myself as if that would fix anything. Eventually, I was sent back to the village. They couldn't find other guardians. My father's death, since I was too young, didn't bring harsh punishment. The villagers, however, paid. A lot were caught or punished for trafficking women. Many women they sold were rescued. But everyone in the village despised me, even my grandparents. They locked me up, beat me, tortured me. I fought back ferociously, and they were scared. So they tried to starve me. I started a fire and ran. Following Mama's disappearance route, I searched for her like a beggar. I roamed, slept under bridges, drank dirty water, scavenged garbage, ate expired food, never finding her. When I got sick, curled up in a park corner, at rock bottom, a young boy in a suit discovered me through a veil of roses. "Hey, I found someone," he excitedly told an adult. His youthful, refined face shone against the light. It burned itself into my memory like a wildfire blazing through endless mountain nights, a blend of hope and destruction. That was 12-year-old Ben. In my poor, young life, no one like Ben existed. He fed me, gave me drinks, bought new clothes, and helped find my mother. Like a prince from a fairy tale, noble and warm like the sun. We found my grandparents months later. Ben tracked down my mom's parents. Their house was a charming, old home. I stood nervously before the wilting roses, as the glowing boy behind them gave me an encouraging smile. Summoning courage, I faced the strangers who opened the door, disclosed my identity. They looked utterly shocked. Turns out, Mama hid my existence from them. My grandparents only learned about having a granddaughter then. Mama had a new family, married a divorced man with a daughter, my age but slightly younger. She treated her like her own child. My grandparents were uncomfortable with me, but they kept me because I was blood. They fed me but didn't let me bother Mama's new life. I lived like a guest with my grandparents in that old house. Mama hardly visited, and when she did, she wasn't friendly. She showered all her maternal love on my stepsister, attended her parent-teacher meetings, tutored her, bought her things I couldn't even dream of. When my stepsister improved a couple of ranks at school, everyone praised her. Mama took her to amusement parks. I envied them, studied hard for first place, eagerly showed Mama. But no one seemed happy, just a glance at my report card, dismissive. It was my stepsister who took pity on me, invited me to her room, shared her beloved romance novels and favorite snacks. I noticed a little candy among them, cautiously asked if I could have it. She generously handed it over. I treasured it, didn't want to eat it. But when Mama saw, she frowned, grabbed my hand, looking at the candy. "Tina, can't you keep your hands clean?" She thought I took my sister's stuff without asking. She didn't even listen to my explanation, just left me on the roadside and drove off. I can't really remember how I felt watching her car disappear into the distance. Even now, thinking about it makes me want to cry. When Mom finally realized I was innocent, she never apologized. Even later, when I had my own pocket money, I never dared to desire that kind of candy again. Maybe I was subconsciously avoiding it, feeling like I didn't deserve it. In high school, people found out about my background. They started calling me the child trafficker's daughter, murderer, said I stole things. Whether it was true or not, the rumors spread like wildfire, and I became the most hated person in school. My classmates started ignoring me. For group projects, I was always left alone. Everyone got messages except me. Nobody wanted to be on cleaning duty with me, so I'd clean the whole place by myself. Things got worse. Someone locked me in an abandoned classroom, I got scolded for skipping classes, and once I was shoved into ice-cold water in winter. I'm not the type to just take it. Even if I couldn't win, I'd fight back with everything I had. So, yeah, I'd end up getting beaten up by a group. During my darkest times, Ben was like a godsend. He drove those bullies away. Ben had just transferred to our school and was already popular. He had a great family background, was good-looking, and smart. Some even secretly called him the campus heartthrob. Silly but fitting. He walked up to me, under everyone's stunned gaze, took off his jacket, and put it over my trembling shoulders. His striking eyebrows and eyes, even after years of not seeing him, were just as breathtaking. He raised an eyebrow at the bullies and said, "Why pick on her? Try me instead." No one dared to respond, and they all left. Ben took me to the nurse's office for some treatment. As we headed home, he sighed, "Why is it every time I see you, you're in such a mess?" I was speechless, lost in thought. He thought I was eyeing stuff from a street vendor, so he stopped the car and bought everything, giving it to me with an apologetic smile. Sorry if I upset you. Don't worry, consider us friends. I'll make sure no one bullies you again. Friends? I guess he was my first real friend. I looked at the beautifully packed treats and a small grape-flavored candy inside and asked softly, are these all for me? He looked confused, of course. Who else? I picked up the candy and started crying. He had no idea why I suddenly burst into tears and awkwardly tried to comfort me. Don't cry. I wiped my tears, clutching that candy, and whispered, thank you. He really was amazing. Soon after, Ben transferred to my class and became my desk mate. He introduced me to his friends, who became mine too. With friends around, the bullying stopped. Those who bullied me got punished, thanks to him. They even came to apologize. He slowly pulled me out of the mud. After graduation, he confessed to me. In front of our classmates, I quietly accepted, and he was over the moon. He stole his buddy's bike to take me on a joyride, proudly announcing to everyone that he had a girlfriend. In the evening, he reluctantly walked me home, standing by summer's lush roses, watching me go inside. My grandparents weren't there. My mom's husband was waiting for me, saying it was my grandma's birthday and the whole family was out celebrating, so he came to pick me up. I nodded and went to change into something nicer. To my surprise, my so-called stepfather followed me. He had always had a good husband, good son-in-law image, and was friendlier to me than others, so I didn't guard against him. That's why I was shocked when he approached with a lecherous smile and touched me. He tried to caress my face. Tina, you're really getting prettier. I fought back as hard as I could, but how could I overpower an adult man? I bit a chunk out of his face and grabbed a crystal trophy, hitting his head repeatedly until he collapsed, staining my room's floor with blood. Exhausted, I stopped, recalling how many years ago, in those deep mountains, I fought fiercely like a wolf pup, battling fate with every ounce of strength. Those vast mountains, I seemed to have escaped and yet never really left. After he was hospitalized, my mom slapped me and looked at me like an enemy. You must have seduced him. She was pulled away as I stood there in shock. Everyone blamed me. She even changed my college application without asking. When the admission notice came, I found I had been accepted to a distant university. My grandparents gave me some money for tuition. You're 18 now, we're not obligated to support you anymore. Basically telling me not to come back. So I packed my bags, took an overnight train to a distant, unfamiliar city. I saw everyone else with parents helping them, but I was alone, figuring things out by myself. I don't know what Ben was thinking, but he gave up a great nearby school to follow me, choosing the same major. He watched me work part-time jobs, eating cheap food, sharing half his allowance with me, and secretly taking jobs too to help pay for school. Pushed to tears, I asked, why are you so good to me? Ben's smile was blindingly beautiful. It's my duty to be good to my girlfriend. Even as a couple, I didn't want him to keep helping without me returning the favor, insisting I'd pay him back after graduation. Soon, naturally, we met the parents, and engagement and marriage followed. Everything ground to a halt on our engagement day. It took years and years to fall for him. But it only took a moment to be disappointed. The last 1% of affection I felt wasn't really love. I kept remembering him saving me again and again. I didn't like him anymore, but I couldn't bear to see him fail and get taken down. That 1% wasn't love, it was gratitude. I packed up all my stuff and randomly tossed an expired candy into my pocket. The next day, thinking about how my grandparents fed me when I was a kid, I went back to City A. But when I got to the address they gave me, it wasn't a hospital but a villa. Just as I was about to leave, the villa doors burst open. A bunch of my friends and classmates rushed out, shooting confetti everywhere, shouting, Tina, happy birthday. I was more shocked than delighted. I had a gut feeling this was Ben's doing. I wanted to leave but couldn't resist my enthusiastic old classmates, who dragged me inside the festively decorated villa, saying it was a birthday party for me. I could fiercely resist someone's malice, but I couldn't easily refuse their kindness. When things were at their peak, Ben wheeled out a cake like he was the main attraction, with everyone making way for him. He pushed the multi-layered cake to the center of the room, brushing off past confusion and grievances with a perfect smile, softly saying, "Tina, happy birthday." I wanted to step back, but he blocked me, looking a bit saddened. "Can we not even be classmates?" The implication was that he was celebrating under the guise of being a classmate. Under the gaze of everyone, I had to stay put. Someone suggested playing a game where the highest and lowest scores would trade their most important item. As expected, I got the highest score, and Ben the lowest. He took out a fancy gift box, and when it was opened, everyone gasped. Inside was a dazzling, luxurious necklace with a huge pink diamond. Someone recognized it as an heirloom from Ben's family. I took out the expired candy from my pocket, feeling stuck with it in my hand. Ben didn't mind the disparity at all. He took the candy from me and carefully stored it away, placing the elaborate gift box in my empty palm and repeating, "Tina, happy birthday." It was his meticulously prepared birthday gift for me. Before I could process it all, I heard him talking to his system, asking, "System, did Tina's affection level increase?" System, no. Ben was frustrated. Did she see something in a room that made her affection drop so suddenly? What room? It hit me. Ben and I had lived here for a while, and there was a room in the attic he never let me enter. While everyone was distracted at the party, I headed to the attic and opened the door. Inside were numerous easels with paintings of a girl I didn't recognize, with a beautiful face and gentle demeanor. So that's how Linda looks. I saw in the corner of the room several objects. I realized that for each of my birthdays or anniversaries, Ben prepared a gift for me and an even better one to keep here. Including today's pink diamond, he'd also prepared a bigger, more precious blue diamond for his true first love. All these undelivered gifts sat there, silently mocking me. In the corner, I found journals filled with Ben's affection and longing for that girl and his forced kindness to me, along with his guilt towards Linda and his weariness and impatience with me. I read how he described to her the process of winning me over, making it sound like a joke to amuse her. I stumbled downstairs and accidentally caught Ben, when no one was watching, tossing the expired candy into the trash, no longer pretending to cherish it. He must not remember. That candy was something he gave me when we were young. I let it expire but never had the heart to eat it. It was the most important thing to me. It used to be. He saw me too and froze for a moment before frowning, not bothering to act anymore, coldly asking, "What were you doing upstairs?" I looked at him plainly, "Went to the attic." "To the attic, to see your hidden first love." "I know everything now. Ben, I know now that your kindness was just part of your quest." Spring was nearing its end, the roses were withering, and with the continual rain, distant thunder sounded as a heavy rain started pouring. As he regained his calm, he looked at me deeply, waiting for my shock and questions now that I knew the truth, pondering how to manage the situation. He didn't expect I wouldn't bother questioning him. I bypassed him and ran out into the rain, retrieving the expired candy tossed in the trash. Always going against the grain, never compliant or settled, continually breaking his expectations. Ben chased me into the rain, pulled me back, wiped the rain off my face, and angrily said, "Tina, what the hell are you doing?" I crouched in a corner, clutching the candy, eyes fixed on the floor, hiding my thoughts. My earlier straightforwardness caught him off guard, triggering memories for him. I'd overheard his conversations with the system. Of course, all his rescues weren't coincidences but calculations. At 10 years old, after being abandoned at the police station, sent back to the village to face abuse, and wandering like a beggar, he was there. He was always there, watching coldly as I went through hardships, planning to appear as a savior when I was most vulnerable, ensuring I'd never forget him at first sight. At 17, bullied at school, he did the same, ignoring my suffering until I'd endured enough, then stepping in, pretending to be my hero. But actually, those people who bullied me? Turns out he was the mastermind behind it all. When I was 18, after he confessed to me and took me home, he was holding the script. He knew perfectly well what fate awaited me. Yet, he stood under the rose bush and watched me indifferently. At that moment, he didn't leave right away. He just stayed there, and if he looked up, he'd see me up there in the window, fighting against fate. Later on, when my so-called family kicked me out, guess who was behind that too? Him. He pushed me into utter isolation, then swooped in to save me. Little by little, he drained my love to complete his mission, to save his true love. A broken light, stealing the glow of a wildfire, pretending to be the moon. Pretending to be light, hope, salvation. But really, my life had no light or salvation. Just a fire in the forest, spreading destruction everywhere. He didn't know I could read minds. I understood all his indifference and hurt. From his perspective, he thought I was angry just because I found out he was using me while having a first love. He and the system thought I'd stay angry, disappointed, and heartbroken. But I just sat in a corner, my dress soaking, quietly holding an old candy and murmuring, "You probably don't remember, but you gave me this. Back when I was bullied, you took me to the nurse's office, sent me home, bought me snacks on the way. I couldn't bear to eat them, saved them till now." I looked up at him. For a split second, Ben's eyes showed a hint of realization, and then his gaze became complicated. I forced a smile. "Thanks for the candy, for your birthday gift. No matter what, I'll remember the good in you." My love affection score was at 2%. The system sounded a bit excited. "Host, finally, the progress bar moved." Ben looked shocked. The rise in love affection was as unexpected as its earlier drop. But if it could rise, there was a chance. He put on a gentle, doting face, cooked up a story to explain Linda's existence, said she was his first love who passed away, but he'd forget her to love me truly. He carefully embraced me. This time, I didn't move away, pretended to be touched, and the system's voice chimed in, "Love affection score is at 10%. Host, keep going. Keep going." Ben's gentle, indulgent look barely held as his eyes stayed fixed on me. I closed my eyes and pretended to faint, collapsing in his arms. The doctor couldn't find why I fainted, just chalked it up to exhaustion and worry. Told me to rest and relax. This was a good opportunity. Ben looked after me, and I seemed moved, let go of my distrust, stopped resisting him. In just a few days, my love affection shot up significantly. He patiently took care of me, peeling apples, but deep down, he was worried. Tina wasn't someone who got moved easily, her love affection rose too fast. The system didn't care, she already liked you. People who are starved of love cling on desperately when shown a bit of kindness. This rise is normal. The system added, "Host, you need to speed up. Being the evil supporting character, she can't stay alive till the end. Soon, Tina'll be diagnosed with cancer and die. You don't have much time." Ben's hand paused, he accidentally cut his finger. Blood immediately seeped out of his fair, slender hand. He nonchalantly tossed the blood-stained apple, as if that moment of distraction was just an illusion, his heart cold and calm. "All right. I'll find a way to win her love again." I lay to the side, watching him through a small mirror on the table, glimpsing the miserable end of my story without feeling anything, just numbness. Enduring so much suffering since childhood, I only recently understood why, because I was the evil side character. Being the evil side character meant having a tragic background, being despised, naturally twisted and evil, creating trouble for the main leads, deepening their bond, and being written off when no longer needed, my life ending bleakly. Ben finished peeling another apple and handed it to me. I turned, pretending I just noticed his injury, gently touching his pinky with what I'd concern. "How did you hurt your hand?" He subtly retracted his hand, replying casually, "Just a small cut, it'll heal on its own." I disapproved, grabbed a band-aid, carefully wrapped his cold hand, muttering, "Even small cuts hurt." Afterward, I looked up, eyes bright, full of him. Ben's eyelashes flickered as he avoided my eyes. He heard the system voice, "Love affection score 55%. 59%. 61%. Host, keep up the good work, you're almost out of this task world." From then on, Ben's strategy went smoothly, love affection climbed back to 99%. But that last 1% lingered, with no real progress. The system said, this is the challenge of an S-rank task. It's not unheard of for task players to get the evil side character's love affection to 99%, but everyone gets stuck there, ultimately failing. Ben contemplated, scheming with the system to stage a hero saves the damsel act, hoping to stir me. People in the village who'd been jailed for trafficking women mostly got released, holding grudges that I brought cops back then. They've been looking to get revenge on me. Ben leaked my address to them, plotting with the system. When the thugs showed up, he'd shield me from their attack, dying dramatically in front of me, leaving a lasting impression to earn that elusive final 1%. He took me to hang out in quiet places. I went along, no defenses, wherever he suggested. One night, as we headed home through a poorly lit alley, a menacing man emerged, knife in hand, sneering, "Got you, you ruined my wife and sent me to prison." I didn't care if I was gonna piss him off, I just said it straight up, "How's this my fault? You got yourself into this mess." The thug got all riled up and charged at me with a knife. Ben jumped in front of me and took him on, getting cut up pretty bad. Just when he was about to play the hero and take the stabbing for me, I ran in and took the hit instead. As the blade struck, I could hear police sirens in the distance. I'd called them when no one was watching. The guy wasn't really trying to kill anyone. Seeing the blood gush out of my chest and hearing the sirens getting closer freaked him out, and he just bolted. His system was freaking out, shouting, "It's over, it's over. The side character's dead, what about your mission? No chance for that last 1% now, it's hopeless." Ben didn't care about him or the system. From the moment I shielded him from that knife, he kinda zoned out, catching me as I collapsed into his arms, desperately trying to stop the blood, even though it was pointless. He was caught up in some deep, overpowering emotion. His eyes looked calm but held something intense and unknown. His voice shook a bit, "Tina, you can't die. How could you die? How can I just let you die in front of me?" I interrupted him, pulling a blood-stained candy from my pocket. My weak hand didn't have much strength and it fell into the pool of blood. I kinda wanted to cry but ended up just giving him a smile, "It's such a shame. I never got to taste a single piece of candy before dying. Ben, I didn't have much good in this life, and the only sweetness I had, came from you. I'm really grateful, so grateful. I somehow knew you didn't love me. I didn't dare hope for anyone's love. Just seeing you one last time is enough for me. Ben, I love you so much." My voice became weaker as I mustered my strength to say this and then gently closed my eyes as I looked at him one last time. The moment I passed, surprisingly, the system chimed in, "Target's affection level 100%. Congratulations to the host, mission accomplished. Commencing exit from the task world now." System, this has really surprised the system. I didn't think failing the plan would push it past that last 1%. Host, you'll soon be able to see your first love. No more dealing with the villainous. Host. Host. Ben was stunned for a while, slowly picking up the candy. Even though the mission was complete and his wish was about to come true, it wasn't the joy he imagined. He clutched the bloody, cheap candy tightly, feeling strange and pained. With the activation of the mechanical voice, his consciousness blanked out, leaving him dizzy. When he opened his eyes again, she was gone. He was back in his own real world. The youngest in the Ben family had awakened, and all the big families in City C came to visit, offer condolences, and congratulate him. Luxury cars filled the understated yet extravagant Chinese-style courtyard, with people from political and business circles endlessly pouring in. The youngest Master Ben was a legendary figure. Ben was an illegitimate child, never well liked, and was an outsider in his family. No one expected that after reaching adulthood, he'd claw his way to the top ruthlessly and eventually become the heir of the Ben family and the youngest CEO of Ben Corp. He had the most say in City C now, so naturally, everyone was curious about his next move. Rumor had it that young Master Ben had a first love who became a vegetable in a car accident while saving him and had been in a coma for years. Ben was devoted, ignoring all the wealthy women and heiresses of City C, staying by that girl's side. When the doctor said she might never wake up, Ben went a bit mad, even attempting to take his own life to stay with her. Fortunately, he was discovered in time and resuscitated after several months of coma. He finally woke up. What surprised everyone even more was that Linda, the girl the doctors said would never wake up, miraculously regained consciousness too. People believed it was Ben's unwavering devotion that moved the heavens to return her to him. In the hospital room, even after waking, Ben seemed dazed. The system called, "Host. Host. Wake up, your darling first love is here to see you." Ben frowned at the annoying system's voice, slowly opening his eyes and staring at the ceiling for a long time. He asked, almost dismissively, "Why are you still here?" The system happily replied, "After the final mission's done, I'm off to retirement." We all retire with our last host. Ben's mind was a mess, and he wasn't in the mood to worry about the system. He got up just as Linda came in with a bouquet. She wore a pure white dress, her beautiful face easily arousing goodwill. Meeting his eyes, she gave a gentle smile as if it had been a lifetime ago. Linda sat beside him, asking softly with concern, "Ben, do you feel better?" Linda wasn't the most stunning, but her gentle demeanor, along with her notable family background, made her a goddess to many of the city's elite young men. Now, her gentle words sure carried a goddess-like aura. Ben should have been thrilled. He'd finally saved his beloved. But for some reason, his feelings were all over the place, a jumble of indescribable emotions stuck inside him with everything but happiness. When he looked at Linda, the girl he once loved so much he was willing to die for her, the first thing he felt was unfamiliarity. Others thought he'd only been unconscious for a few months. But in Ben's eyes, he'd lived out a mission world life, spanning what felt like half a lifetime, real as can be over those many years. Suddenly back, everything felt strange, even his first love seemed distant. It wasn't until Linda called his name several times that he snapped back, forcing a faint smile, and answered, "Much better now." He pushed those messy feelings aside, trying hard not to dwell on what happened in the mission world. It was over, all of it was. Now he should move on from Tina. She was just a target after all. Standing in front of him now is Linda, the one he should truly cherish and treat well. He's in love with Linda. That other person was just a passerby, someone insignificant. Ben looked deeply into Linda's eyes. "You finally woke up. I've waited for you for so many years." Linda's expression turned somber. "Yeah, we missed so many years, but we've finally made it through the tough times. We have a long way ahead of us now." Ben replied, "Yeah." There was a moment of silence before he pulled her into his embrace and said, "Linda, I love you." Linda's cheeks turned a little red. Ben kept saying, "I love you, only you." He unknowingly repeated it several times, over and over, emphasizing it with a hidden intention he wasn't even aware of. After being discharged from the hospital, it happened to be Linda's birthday. Ben organized a grand birthday party for her himself. Their story has become a popular tale in City C, with everyone at the party joking with Linda, saying they're expecting good news from her and Ben soon. Linda shyly held up her wine glass and socialized. Her gaze drifted to Ben, who was lost in thought staring at the cake. No one really knew what he was thinking in that moment. Upon being reminded by someone nearby, he naturally withdrew his gaze, turning to listen to those around him. He was a man of few words, occasionally sipping his red wine while staring down at the liquid clinging to the glass. As the crowd dispersed, he called for the kitchen staff to switch the cake. As the staff pushed the cake away, Ben unconsciously recalled organizing many birthday parties for someone else in the past. She used to love cake styled with white lisianthus flowers. Her affection was long-lasting and faithful, so every year he ordered a lisianthus-themed cake, pure white and elegant, incredibly beautiful. This cake wasn't his choice. Coincidentally, it was another lisianthus flower cake. Ben instinctively didn't want to see anything related to her anymore. Returning to the hall, Linda had changed into her gift, a light blue long tulle dress adorned with countless sparkling crystals. She asked expectantly, "Do I look good?" Ben was taken aback. It reminded him of someone else, wearing a light blue dress, excitedly asking him if she looked good. What did he reply back then? He said everything she wore looked good on her. He thought, she's imitating Linda again. The stuffy feeling returned, making his heart feel heavy. Ben looked at Linda and, in a hoarse voice, uttered a single word, "Yeah." He glanced just a couple more times before hurriedly leaving, his steady pace actually hiding a hint of escape. Ben walked out of the venue to a small courtyard in the back of the hotel to get some air, irritably pulling off his tie, still unable to shake off the suffocating feeling. It was as if he could still hear the girl asking, "Do I look good? Do I?" She really did look good, very good. Tina was stunning, so much so that no one else in either world could compare to her beauty. She didn't know, when she emerged from the crowd in that beautiful dress, even the pale lights seemed to shine more brightly. But at that time, Ben felt nothing but unfounded malice towards her. Maybe it was to vent his frustration at having to please others, feeling guilty for his first love and thus rejecting her. Or maybe he just didn't like someone as clever and scheming as her. He let the malice grow unchecked, as if it could hide the involuntary thrill he felt at her appearance. He didn't want to acknowledge her beauty, her kindness, or her existence. Thinking back now, that malice was completely unreasonable. He was the one who actively approached her, used every means to win her love, only to discard her like she meant nothing. He's the one who disrupted her life, enticed her, used her, and threw her away. The so-called devotion that impressed everyone was merely the result of manipulating and sacrificing another girl. How could he have the audacity to blame or despise her? It was Ben who wronged Tina. The gentle breeze swayed the shadows of the trees. Here outside, he wouldn't see anything related to her, right? Ben stayed under the tree for a while, subconsciously touching the back of his hand, where there used to be a blue sapphire engagement ring. It was also outside the venue, in the garden, where he casually took it off and tossed it into the grass. Ben snapped back to reality. Linda came out to find him, blushing as she thanked him. "Thank you for the gift, I really like it." Ben returned to reality. What gift? In the small reception room, Ben finally noticed the room was filled with easels and cabinets of precious items. It was the room from the mission world, now moved here. Everyone thought it was his doing, praising his deep affection, seeing his dedication in preparing birthday gifts every year for his first love while she was in a coma. Linda basked in the envious gazes, instinctively straightening her back. Ben was expressionless, asking in his mind, "System, what's going on here?" "System, this is a little extra benefit I got for you, helping you bring those gifts over. Weren't you regretting not being able to give them away? Now your first love has received them, isn't it a nice surprise?" There wasn't a trace of surprise in Ben's expression, instead, he seemed a little pale. He looked at a pink diamond necklace fallen in the corner, fingers twitching but ultimately not picking it up. Amidst a sea of blue, it was one of the few things of a different color. He had always known. Tina liked white, pink, and purple but wasn't interested in blue. In a way, he was the person who understood her the most. He had studied every aspect of her story repeatedly, participated in her short life, leaving indelible marks on it. In a sense, they were the same. Both born in the abyss, desperately climbing out with cunning minds, drawn to people and things pure white. That's why Ben was drawn to Linda, just like his first love, while Tina loved the facade of sunny personas. Tina liked white dresses, with the warm summer breeze swaying under the shadows of banyan trees, creating a dappled brilliance. Tina loves white bellflowers and lilies of the valley. She often places a delicate vase full of them on her desk. Tina, with her pure and harmless appearance, looks pitiful when wronged. No one would guess she's actually tough, not letting anyone push her around. Tina isn't a fan of blue. Back then, he didn't care about her preferences. Even if he knew, he didn't pay attention, only choosing gifts based on what Linda liked. She never showed disappointment, but maybe she was a bit disappointed in the end. Host. Host. Ben snapped back to reality. The system was nagging. You zoned out again. What's up with you lately? What are you thinking about? What was he thinking about? Tina. He avoided everything related to her, yet constantly found himself thinking about her, unable to stop. Ben clumsily shifted his gaze back to Linda, reminding himself repeatedly that he should care about Linda, the one he should love. He adjusted his expression, smiled warmly, and celebrated Linda's birthday. After the celebration, as people began to leave, Linda shyly leaned in to give him a kiss. Instinctively, Ben turned his head, avoiding her. Linda looked puzzled. He realized his mistake and started to apologize but heard Linda's inner thoughts instead. What's going on? Didn't the villain's affection level max out long ago? Ben froze. Linda didn't notice his change and kept a layer of doubt and hurt on the surface, restless and confused inside. I cleared the villain's route a long time ago, completed my mission, and left this world. It's weird to be dragged back. But why is the villain who should be full of love acting strange? Without the system around, I can't check affection levels or use charm tools. It's tricky. No surprise, he's a handsome, strong, tragic, cold, and stubborn villain. After not seeing each other for a few years, he's more impressive than the original protagonist. As long as I hold on to his heart, I can rule this world, be rich and powerful, and live a good life here. Ben couldn't believe it, staring at her like he was trying to see her true thoughts. Whatever he heard, the system did too, exclaiming in shock, "Damn, she was playing you all along." Linda waited for a reaction from him but saw nothing. She took the initiative, pretending the awkward moment hadn't happened, and tried to hug him. Ben snapped back suddenly, shoved her away, and stumbled off. Left there, Linda faced people's strange looks, biting her lip in embarrassment. Ben wandered for a long time, feeling dizzy, his world turned upside down. He tripped on some flowers and fell into the bushes. The cascading roses were blooming everywhere. His pale, jade-like hands got pricked, small red wounds standing out. The slight pain woke him up slowly. Sitting among the roses, ignoring the thorns, he repeated the same words as the system, "So she was playing me all along." Now at the peak of his power, few remembered Ben's rough childhood. Only he did. His mother was a low-level hostess who had several encounters with his father, got pregnant, gave birth to him, and took him to the Ben family at around 2 or 3 years old, then disappeared after getting a large sum of money. Mrs. Ben disliked the sudden appearance of an illegitimate child. But she pitied him for being so young with no mom, so she allowed him to stay, casually assigning a nanny to take care of him. His father didn't like this son from a poor background, and Mrs. Ben didn't like him either. The nanny treated him poorly, often beating and scolding him. Within the larger family, his brothers frequently bullied him, left him hungry until he fought the guard dogs for raw meat, and beat him up for fun. Linda showed up during that dark time, like a light in the abyss. She would bring him food, buy him a small birthday cake, and stop others from hurting him. In school, although Ben was out of place, perpetually bullied, Linda was always there to save him. But Linda was popular, admired by many. He was just a nobody among them. So he fought desperately to climb up, using any means, and unexpectedly became the heir of the Ben family, finally gaining the courage to pursue her. Then, an accident happened. Linda pushed him away from a speeding car but was hit herself, becoming a long-term coma patient. Ben always saw Linda as his first love, his light. But today, that light turned out to be fake. Growing up devoid of much love, people either become extremely needy, craving love, or they become emotionally cold and distant. Ben was the latter. Clinging desperately to the love he had, even willing to lay down his life for it. How ridiculous, to find it all a lie, just pretense. At this moment, he finally felt what Tina had been through. Shared their pain, his heart heavy and aching, small but persistent. Just like the pain from the injuries on his hand. He recalled Tina's eyes, misty and caring, how she'd tenderly bandage even the smallest wound, with nothing but him in her eyes. No one else would ever do that again, worrying about his smallest discomfort. In the end, Tina was the only one who truly loved him. Yet, he hurt the only person who genuinely cared about him for a fake love. Ben fell ill. After pushing away the person he thought he admired in front of everyone, he ran to a corner, into the prickly flowers, and stayed in the pouring rain, lifeless, letting it wash over his bleeding wounds. The secretary found him like that. After being dragged back, Ben caught a cold and fever. When Linda tried to care for him, he coldly told her to leave. His sudden change confused everyone, not understanding what had happened to him. After recovering, Linda found a chance to meet him again. Ben was busy catching up on work and didn't send her away this time. After a long day, they went downstairs for a walk in the evening breeze. Linda finally asked Ben, "What's going on with you? Is something bothering you?" Ben looked at her calmly, his expression complicated. His feelings for Bai Xiao were also complex. He somehow didn't want to see her, even felt irked, but remembered she had helped him a lot. Ben thought he shouldn't just ignore her. With a downward gaze, he replied, "Nothing." As they passed a small stand, the vendor eagerly recommended flowers to them. Ben wasn't interested but noticed candy tied to balloons in the corner. He paused and asked about it. The vendor quickly replied, "These are for kids, but if you like them, you can have one." Ben stayed silent. The vendor assumed he agreed to buy and handed a bunch of flowers directly to Linda, giving her the extras too, sweetly complimenting, "Sir, your girlfriend is so pretty, a perfect couple." Ben focused on the candy, not intending to give her flowers. But stopping it now felt awkward, so he let it slide. Hearing the vendor, he frowned, "She's not my girlfriend." Linda's smile froze. The vendor awkwardly changed his words. After walking further, Linda thanked him for the flowers. Ben stiffly tried to explain, but she interrupted him. Linda, seemingly careless, let the balloon and candy slip out of her grasp, and the candy with purple wrapping fell into the river. She didn't care and thought internally, "Such a cheap thing, only kids from the countryside would like it. It's embarrassing to hold, better to throw it away." A cheap, outdated, insignificant candy. Linda didn't think twice about the incident, only realizing later that Ben had stopped, gazing intensely at the still water. She was puzzled. Ben clutched his chest as pain spread throughout his body, making his fingertips tremble. The cold river seemed tinged with red, as he imagined Tina lying in a pool of blood. She had held an expired candy, blood-stained package rustling gently. The candy she never got to eat. He recalled when she handed him the candy at her birthday party. He hadn't cared and tossed it in the trash. She retrieved it in the rain, and sat quietly in the corner, heartbreakingly silent. Another memory emerged when he took her home after she was bullied, guilt-ridden. He watched her closely, noticing her gaze at a stand from the car, buying everything from it for her. The young girl, surprised, chose the unremarkable, cheap candy from the snacks, softly and earnestly thanked him. It was just a piece of candy, yet not just a piece of candy. It was the familial, romantic, and friendly affection she could only dream of. Ben's eyes reddened as he plunged into the icy river. Ben fell ill again. Such misfortune. In the chilly spring, he jumped into the river, as if possessed, just for a piece of candy. He didn't retrieve it. The water was too cold, almost cramping him, nearly drowning him. Already barely recovered from previous illnesses, the ordeal made him feverish. He began to mumble, hallucinate, and called out to Tina feverishly. "Tina." His longtime secretary confirmed he knew no one by that name, even calling a psychologist. The doctor couldn't identify the issue, prescribed some sedatives, and left. As the fever persisted, Ben gradually became more clear-headed. Pale, with flushed cheeks, he stared blankly at the scabbed wound on his hand, a bitter smile playing on his lips. He mocked his own misery. When he dove into the cold water, blur fading, slender light wavering above, he finally let his emotions surge. His chaotic heart gradually unraveled. The suffocating blocked emotions found release, lacerating his heart. At last, he realized his love for Tina. He admitted he regretted it. He regretted losing a girl who loved him so deeply. Memories of her only became sharper with time, piercing him with sorrow with every recollection. Ben visibly sank into dejection. As his body healed, his spirit remained trapped in illness, uninterested in anything, even his once cherished career. He cleared his premises of precious plants, planting roses instead. But roses at this time of year were wilting, not blooming. Ben crushed a wilting rose, allowing the bittersweet scent to spread, filling the air with a decadent fragrance. He stared at the cut on his hand and murmured. Even a small wound hurts. How much must it have hurt when she was stabbed? His complexion poor, lips colorless. His secretary caught this scene, pretending not to hear Ben's odd murmur, approaching to report on company matters and mentioning Linda's frequent attempts to visit, stopped at the door. Ben had no interest in responding. Just then, his secretary took a call, returning with a grave, anxious expression, informing him, "Boss, Linda's been kidnapped." This was originally Linda's parents' problem, but unable to handle it, they sought Ben's help, believing he had special feelings for Linda. Ben hesitated but eventually decided to step in. Even though his feelings for Linda had faded, gratitude lingered for her past help. No matter her motives, he couldn't ignore it. Tina can't stand people who are cold and gloomy. The kidnappers demanded one person to bring ransom to their designated spot. Linda's parents were too scared, so Ben took a bag of cash there himself, with cops secretly tailing him. It was an abandoned mountain area in the countryside. The exchange went well, but a conflict broke out towards the end. The kidnappers wanted to kill Linda. Ben kicked one of them, knocking the gun out of his hand, and started fighting them off. In the chaos, he managed to escape with Linda. He got injured, and the group was closing in. So he frowned at Linda and said, "Let's split up. I'll divert them." Linda was scared and tried to stay close to him. Ben dodged her. Linda looked hurt, but Ben suddenly heard her inner thoughts. These hired guys are really good actors. Gotta pay them more. Ben snapped his head up, staring at her. Linda didn't notice his expression. She was still plotting how to use this chance to get closer to him, unaware that her thoughts were loud and clear to him. Ben listened, feeling all the strength drain out of him. He couldn't move a step. It turned out Linda had set this up to trap him. Ben's sudden cold behavior had made her anxious, fearing she'd lost her special place in his heart. So she staged her own kidnapping to lure Ben in, thinking they'd bond over the shared experience. It wasn't the first time. Back in school, the bullying Ben faced was orchestrated by her, and she pretended to rescue him afterward. As a child, when he was bullied by family, she'd watch from afar and only step in at his lowest point to increase his gratitude. She'd push someone into a pit and then gently pull them out, pretending to be their savior. Just like how he treated Tina before. When you're the one holding the knife, you don't feel anything. But when the blade turns and pierces your own heart, then you feel the pain. It's poetic justice, and it's the best kind. Ben's heart ached, and all of a sudden, memories flooded in. Young Tina left at the police station, Tina beaten and soaked in cold water, brave Tina smashing a trophy over her stepdad's head. He'd always avoided recalling those moments. But now, he forced himself to relive every bit of it, feeling the indescribable heartache, guilt, and regret. The fake kidnappers caught up to them, and Linda anxiously tried to pull him away. Ben pushed her aside, sank to his knees, clutching his aching head. The pain intensified. He held his head. The pursuers exchanged glances, surprised at catching up so soon. They hesitated, not wanting to blow their cover, so they started kicking him, trying to make it look real. Ben didn't resist, still holding his head, lost until the police arrived and arrested everyone. Even as they helped him into a car, something clicked in his mind. He thought, Tina must hate him. Tina's love stats plummeted at the engagement party, which confused him back then, but now it made sense. Perhaps she realized her mind-reading abilities then. Ben remembered his inner disdain for her at that time, realizing she must have heard it all, and his panic set in. Later on, she likely figured out the hardships he inflicted during his pursuit of her. She must hate him. Ben knew Tina well. Her gentle appearance was deceptive, underneath, she was fierce. As a child, she set fire to the village that mistreated her. In high school, she fiercely fought back against bullies. After college, when her stepfather tried to molest her, she smashed his head open. Knowing what he did, revenge was inevitable. Maybe she started planning back at that birthday party, gradually faking affection to lure him in again. She deliberately looked pitiful after getting soaked in the rain to evoke sympathy. She purposefully showed concern when he cut his hand, putting on a sincere act. She intended to shield him from harm, ensuring her last words were guilt-inducing. She knew her fate was sealed due to cancer, so even in death, it had to mean something. She pretended to fall for him again, making him her world. It was like hurling knives across time, each one hitting him hard. He tricked and ditched her, so she got back at him with the same method. She wanted him guilty forever, unable to forget her, to fall for her too late when she's gone, dead in his arms. She wanted him to live in eternal regret and unfulfilled love. No wonder she was the scheming villainess who left the male lead haunted and made the female lead fearful, requiring her early death to secure the protagonist's love line. This was an open scheme, and even understanding it didn't save Ben. He willingly got caught, chuckling softly and murmuring, "What a smart girl." Ben always thought he liked innocent, harmless girls. But now he realized someone like Tina, just as deep and complex, truly captivated him. What a shame. Too late. She died in his arms. That moment became Ben's most painful memory. Evidence was found linking Linda to the kidnappers, leading to her being disowned and disappearing. Ben drifted aimlessly, haunted by memories, whispering the name of a girl he'd never really met, harming himself and wearing those around him down. He was probing for a way back into the mission world. He wanted the system to take him back there. Maybe if the world reset, Tina would exist again. The system didn't deny his guess, but refused to take him back. It said escorting him would use up its energy without any returns. When asked too many times, the system started pretending to be dead and disappeared. Ben didn't give up. Last time, he was pulled into the mission world when he was on the brink of death. So he thought maybe that was the key to going back. He tried self-harm multiple times but was saved every time. The old man and his family was so mad, he kept banging his cane. Some people even speculated Ben was mentally unstable. The speculation quickly gained consensus because everyone noticed how strangely Ben had been acting. From throwing a birthday party for Linda, only to abandon her in public, to sitting in thorns in a storm, getting himself soaked. From jumping into the river for a piece of candy to hallucinating and calling out a non-existent name. There were more odd behaviors that made people suspicious. His family secretly brought in a top-notch psychiatrist. Ben didn't know what they were up to. He lay on the hospital bed, arms full of scars. When he woke from unconsciousness, he was unusually excited, murmuring, "Just a little more, just a bit more." Then, when no one was watching, he tried to slit his wrist again. All the sharp objects in the room had been taken away, so he broke a small ceramic medical device and used the shards to make a deep cut on his hand. Blood flowed profusely, yet Ben remained expressionless. Perhaps when regret reaches a point beyond relief, self-harm becomes a form of release. It wasn't long before he collapsed. In a haze, Ben didn't know how much time passed when he realized he was in an alley. It was the same place he had been before leaving the mission world. The alley was clean, with no traces of the previous battle, as if it never happened. He was excited, but he didn't show it. He found out what time it was, but it wasn't what he expected. The world had not reset. However long it had been in the real world, the same amount of time had passed here. It was the 3rd month after Tina died. She was gone. Truly gone. She would never come back. all hope collapsed. Ben, usually as steady as a rock, lost his composure. He kept asking people about the time until one of them punched him, thinking he was crazy. Ben wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and stumbled away. He visited many places, climbed over mountains to find the mud house she lived in as a child, long since collapsed and overgrown with weeds. He went back to the school they attended together. It was almost summer again. The breeze gently swayed the branches of the banyan tree while young students laughed and played. He visited Tina's grandparents' old house. The roses that once flourished were growing wildly out front. A once neat house now looked unattended and somewhat dilapidated. He went to see her mother. Tina once said her mother was a victim. She didn't blame her mom for disliking her, but also didn't hope for motherly love, nor would she forgive. They were like strangers. Contrary to what he imagined, Tina's mother seemed aged, withered in just a few months. She kept mumbling about her daughter, crying with regret, saying she should have paid her more attention. Only later did she truly realize Tina was her only blood relative daughter. After Tina's death, her mother, her grandparents, and her fair-weather friends started to miss her virtues. When alive, the world despised and hurt her. After her death, the world began to love her. Maybe it's because expressing guilt and love for the dead seems noble, and requires little real effort. The system who pretended to be dead for a long time couldn't help but mock. The person is dead. Are you crying for a ghost? Ben's face turned pale. The system wasn't mocking him, but it struck a nerve. After all, he wasn't much better. Only after she died did he admit he loved her. Covering his aching heart, he suddenly fainted, disappearing from that world. He snapped back to reality. When he woke up, the system was babbling in his ear. I told ya, stop wasting your energy. I can't tell you much, but here's a hint, the world only resets if you didn't complete the task. Once you complete it, there's no going back. It becomes obsolete. I pulled you back just in time. If I hadn't, you'd be stuck there, never returning. What's the point of staying in a mission world without Tina? Get over it. Missed opportunities are gone. No matter how heartfelt the love comes late, it's meaningless to her. Just as Ben was about to tell it to shut up, the room flooded with people. The old man himself ordered him to see the psychiatrist. Ben, irritated, told them to leave, but no one listened. The psychiatrist took one look at him and declared he indeed had mental problems. That one sentence rattled everyone. In this cutthroat world, plenty of folks had their eyes on Ben's resources. His erratic behavior was apparent to all, along with the professional diagnosis and tests. He couldn't argue back and was locked in a sanatorium. Overnight, he fell from a mighty heir to a madman in a mental institution, disgraced. Even old enemies found chances to mess with him. Life wasn't pleasant in there. But he didn't seem to care much, living in a fog, self-destructive, staring at the roses climbing the walls every day. Only when someone tried to take away his hidden piece of candy did he fiercely fight back, only to bring more bullying on himself. The cherished candy fell into the dirt. Behind the roses and fences where he couldn't see, someone quietly watched. It was Tina. It was me. Actually, I've always been here. After I died, my soul got tied to Ben's system. From the moment he returned to the real world, I became the system's master. When Ben asked about it, the system replied, once the last task is done, I can retire. We systems always retire with our last host. Ben didn't think much of it. He didn't realize that the last host the system was talking about wasn't him, it was me. The system stayed with him because I stayed with him. I watched his every move like I was some all-knowing presence. The system mentioned a last task, a sort of mission, and if it meant winning him over, I could make a wish. One that could be to come back to life or something else. Seducing him, piece of cake. I always planned to make him fall in love with me, then suffer for a lifetime. Now, it's just speeding up the plan. I had the system move all the gifts he got for Linda over to my place. I switched the mind-reading power onto him. I arranged for someone to sell him candy-filled balloons downstairs. Little by little, I pushed his buttons, making him love and hurt for me. His love meter kept rising. When he was feverish and saw me standing by the wall, everyone thought he was hallucinating. But it wasn't. At that moment, the system upgraded me. His love was maxed out. I wasn't in a hurry to wish. I had unfinished business. I led him down a path where everyone thought he was going nuts, jumping in rivers, hallucinations, self-harm. Eventually, people thought he was mentally unwell. From the start, the meds the psychiatrist gave him had issues, to ensure, together with the doctors and machines, that he'd be deemed mentally ill. He fell from grace, just like he pushed people to bully me before. Made him love me, live in regret forever. Conquered him, scored a wish. Left him in shambles, paying back for the harm he caused me. It was like hitting 3 targets with 1 arrow. I used to love Ben, a shy and naive kind of love, almost making me forget I was actually ruthless, a scheming, notorious character in a novel, the evil supporting actress. Someone like me, how could I just accept fate? I didn't want to use my death to punish anyone. I wanted to use their misery to make them pay. When it all ended, I made my wish to the system. I wished for the system to be erased. Both in this world and any other, no more systems. The system thought I'd ask to be resurrected. It was shocked hearing my wish. Once granted, it kicked in instantly. The system broke down screaming, "Why? Why make such a wish?" As a spirit, I hugged my knees, squatting in the shadows, dust drifting through the afternoon sunlight, giving shape to the light. I wasn't bothered by the thought of disappearing too. Softly, I said, "I wish, no matter one's status or role in this world, people can control their own lives. Not get toyed with, manipulated, lifted high then slammed down." The system screamed and vanished. I waited for oblivion, but it never came. Somehow, I started becoming real again, a living, breathing person. I got a new life, one where I wasn't pegged as a villainess, battling through hardships. A bright, beautiful fresh start. I never figured out why. I visited the sanatorium, watched Ben being bullied, felt nothing. Ben, pale-faced, tried to reach for a candy, not clear how he got hold of that grape-flavored candy. His hand got stomped on, pushing the candy into the dirt. Between the chaotic crowd, as he got punched and lay dizzy on the ground, Ben's gaze went past that aching hand, beyond the candy wrapper to the roses on the wall. Spring was here again, pink and white roses decorating the iron fence, with blue skies and clouds stretching far above. In the corner, I quietly stood outside the wall, my white dress swaying in the breeze as petals brushed against it and floated down inside the fencing. Calmly, I watched the defeated Ben, then turned away. He finally picked up that piece of candy he'd never give away. He'd never know, on a certain day, a certain year, I once looked at him from behind those roses. Petals brushed past my white dress, floating into the muddy ground inside the walls. The road ahead of us is long, but this is the last time we'll ever meet.